I ate alone in my car. After graduation, while families hugged and took photos inside, my parents never came. No calls, no excuses, but just as I bit into my cold burger, someone knocked on my window, holding a letter my father wrote before he disappeared 10 years ago. Jenna sat in her car, the faint echo of the graduation ceremony still drifting from the gymnasium just beyond the parking lot. The evening sun cast a warm glow on the empty parking lot, but for Jenna, the light only felt cold. Her gown, still pristine and unwrinkled, felt like a costume she had long since stopped believing in. The fabric, so full of expectation, now felt foreign against her skin. She'd imagined this day differently, so many times before, but this was nothing like the celebrations she'd dreamed of as a child. Around her, the sounds of celebration filled the air, laughter, cheers, the joyful chatter of families reuniting, taking photos, basking in the pride of their children's accomplishments. But there was no one for her, not this time, not ever. Her stomach growled, a quiet reminder of how little attention she'd given to herself over the past few weeks. She reached into the brown paper bag on the passenger seat and pulled out the cold burger she'd bought hours ago, before the ceremony, before the disappointment had fully settled in. It wasn't the celebration she had imagined. In fact, nothing about her life had ever turned out the way she had hoped. She hesitated, staring at the burger in her hands, then took a small bite. The taste was bland, almost cardboard-like, but she didn't care. It was food. And at this point, food was all she had. Between finals and the constant pressure of navigating life without the one thing she'd always needed, her parents, she hadn't taken the time to eat properly in days. The burger was cold, the edges stiff and uninviting, but it filled the emptiness in her stomach, if not in her heart. She closed her eyes and let out a long, steady breath, trying to push down the familiar ache of suffocating loneliness that was steadily building inside her chest. Her father, Frank, had disappeared 10 years ago, without a word. No explanation, no closure. Her mother, Laura, had tried her best to keep their small family together, but her struggle had always been quiet, and Jenna had always been too young to fully understand. Over the years, her mother had grown distant, absorbed in her own grief. Jenna had tried to fill the gap, but it was a hole too wide and too deep. Even today, on the most important day of her life, her parents hadn't called. They hadn't even sent a text. They hadn't shown up. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, and Jenna pulled it out, her fingers trembling with the hope that maybe, just maybe, it would be a message. But it was nothing. Just a random alert from an app she'd long forgotten about. A small laugh escaped her lips, bitter and hollow. She shoved the phone back into her pocket, the cold burger now gone, her stomach still empty, but her heart fuller than it had ever been in years. The world outside was moving on, and she was just here, alone. Just as she leaned back in the seat, trying to shake off the feeling of crushing disappointment, a soft knock on the driver's side window startled her. Jenna froze, her breath caught in her throat. She hadn't expected anyone, let alone a knock on the window. It was strange, unsettling. She turned slowly, her heart racing in her chest, unsure of what to expect. A man stood outside, his silhouette outlined by the fading light. In his hand was something, a small envelope pressed tightly between his fingers. At first, Jenna didn't recognize him, but as the man stepped closer, she felt a sudden, overwhelming familiarity. The face before her was older, the lines of time etched across it, but there was no mistaking the soft eyes that stared back at her. It was Richard, her father's old friend. The man who had always promised all those years ago that if Jenna ever needed anything, he would be there. But Richard hadn't been around in years. No one had. And now, on the day she needed someone most, he was here. But why? Richard raised the letter slightly, almost as if offering it to her through the glass. "What's this?" Jenna asked, her voice thick with disbelief. He gave her a sad, almost apologetic smile. "It's for you, Jenna. It's from your father." Her chest tightened at the mention of his name. Her father? The man who had disappeared 10 years ago without a word, without a trace. How could this be possible? How could this be real? Richard's voice dropped to a quiet, careful tone. It's from the last time he ever wrote anything. I've kept it all this time. He asked me to give it to you when the time was right. Jenna's hand trembled as she reached for the envelope. The weight of it felt strange in her palm, almost like a piece of her past, a memory that had been locked away for too long. The handwriting on the front of it, though faded with age, was unmistakable. It was her father's. "Why now?" she whispered, almost afraid to hear the answer. Why, after all these years, had Richard shown up with this letter now, on a day that had already been so hollow and empty? Richard took a step back, the sadness in his eyes deepening. "I don't know. I think he knew you'd need it." Without another word, Richard turned and walked away, his footsteps quiet against the pavement, leaving Jenna alone in her car once more, the letter still clutched tightly in her hands. Jenna sat there, the envelope still in her hands, feeling as if the weight of the years pressed against her chest. The sun outside beat down, and the heat radiated through the glass of the car, but she didn't notice it. The world felt distant, her mind consumed by the letter in her hands. She had waited for this moment for so long, longer than anyone should have to wait for answers. Her father had vanished without a trace, leaving behind a mother who fell apart, a house that grew emptier by the year, and a daughter who had learned to live in the silence he left behind. She had tried to fill the gaps, to pick up the pieces of the life he'd left behind, but nothing ever felt whole. Every question she'd had since that day he disappeared seemed to hang in the air, unanswered. Why had he left? Was it something she did? Was it her fault? Had he simply gotten tired of them? Now, here it was. A letter. A final message from the man who had abandoned her all those years ago. Her hands trembled as she tore open the seal, her breath shallow. She unfolded the paper, and as the words revealed themselves, they struck her like a wave crashing against jagged rocks. "Jenna, I know I'm not there to see you graduate. I know I'm not there for anything anymore, but I want you to know this one thing. I never left you because I didn't love you. I left because I had to. I couldn't tell you why, but I promise it wasn't your fault. You are stronger than you know, and you'll make it through anything life throws at you. Please know that wherever I am, I will always love you. And if you ever need to know the rest of the story, look to your mother. She knows more than she's told you." Her heart skipped a beat, and tears welled up in her eyes. Her father's words were simple, yet they carried a weight that made it hard to breathe. The one thing she never thought she'd hear him say was that it wasn't her fault. But then, there was more. Her mother knew. Had she kept this secret from Jenna all this time? Why? The letter didn't answer those questions. In fact, it only made them sharper, more urgent. Jenna's grip tightened on the paper, and her thoughts raced. This wasn't just about the past. This was about the future. She needed to know the truth. She had to find out why her father left, and why her mother had kept quiet about it for so long. Jenna's mind raced as she sat in the car, the letter still pressed tightly against her chest. Her heart pounded, each beat thudding louder than the last. The paper in her hand might as well have been fire. It burned with questions, with betrayal, with truth too long buried. She was shaking, not just from the emotions crashing over her, but from the realization that everything she thought she knew might be a lie. Her father's words echoed, haunting her with each passing second. "Look to your mother. She knows more than she's told you." The drive home was a blur. Her fingers clutched the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. Every red light felt like a lifetime. Every second she wasn't asking her mother the truth felt stolen. She didn't want confrontation. She needed clarity, the kind that only honesty could bring. When she finally stepped through the front door, the house felt heavier than usual. Her childhood home had always been quiet, but now it felt oppressive, like it had been waiting for this moment too. Her mother was there, seated on the worn couch, the glow of the television flickering across her face. She looked older somehow, tired in a way Jenna hadn't noticed before, or maybe she had and just never asked. Jenna paused at the edge of the room. The words in her throat nearly choked her, but she forced them out. "Mom," she said, voice firm but trembling, "I need to know everything. About Dad. About why he left." Her mother turned slowly, the remote slipping from her hand onto the couch. For a long moment, she simply stared at Jenna, her eyes filling with something unreadable. Fear, guilt, maybe both. I've been waiting for this moment," her mother finally whispered. "I hoped it would never come, but I knew it had to." Jenna stepped forward and held out the letter. Her hands were still shaking. "He said you know. That you've always known." Laura, her mother, took the letter and held it to her chest as if it were a relic. Her eyes filled with tears and she nodded slowly. "I knew. Not everything, but enough to protect you. Or at least I thought I was protecting you." Jenna's breath caught. "From what?" Laura sank into the couch, motioning for Jenna to sit beside her. "Your father didn't just disappear, Jenna. He left because he was being hunted." "Hunted?" Jenna echoed, disbelieving. "By who?" "By people he used to work with. Your father was in deep. He worked for a government agency, covert assignments. Years before you were born, he started uncovering things he shouldn't have. Corruption, traitors. He became a target, and when they found out he had a family, us?" He panicked. Jenna stared at her mother, the room tilting slightly around her. "Why didn't he tell me? Tell us." "He thought the less you knew, the safer you'd be. When he left, it wasn't abandonment. It was protection. He staged his disappearance to throw them off, and I agreed to it. I hated him for it. But I agreed, because I loved him, and because I was afraid of what would happen if we didn't." Tears slid silently down Jenna's cheeks. The pain of his absence collided with this impossible truth. "So all these years, you knew he was alive?" Laura hesitated. "I hoped. We never heard from him after that letter. I thought he'd come back once it was safe, but time passed and I began to fear the worst." Jenna stood, her heart a battlefield of grief, relief, anger, and sorrow. "All this time I thought he left because he didn't want us. I thought I wasn't enough." Her mother stood too and wrapped her arms around Jenna for the first time in what felt like years. "You were always enough. He left because you were everything to him." For a long moment they stood in silence, surrounded by shadows and half-truths. And then, Jenna whispered, "Do you think he's still out there?" "I don't know," her mother said softly. "But now, maybe it's time to find out."